Hello, fellow Rotarians and guests. I'm Lori Alton, and I'm honored to serve as your club president for the Rotary year 2021-2022. The Rotary Club of Columbus has a storied past, beginning in 1915, when a group of civic-minded people saw the need for leaders to come together to find ways to make our community better. And now, 106 years later, we're a vibrant, strong club that continues to place service above self. Our club is diverse, with members across all sectors of business, government, military, healthcare, education, nonprofit and community service, ministry, and the arts. And we come together each week as friends with a shared purpose of learning how we can be more involved in the things that matter to all of us. And we leave committed to changing our community and changing lives. As Rotarians, we are people of action, and it shows. The COVID-19 pandemic this past year has presented unique challenges to both our community and our club. However, as Rotarians and as friends, we've been steadfast in our commitment to our club, to one another, and to our fellow citizens. I've seen you reach out to others in need. You've stepped in to serve where there were gaps, and you've demonstrated love and compassion for others. But I'm not at all surprised, because that's what Rotarians do. This year, we're striving for some sense of normalcy in our lives, with our families, and in our club. We can once again gather together each week for lunch and fellowship, and I, for one, could not be more grateful. There are exciting things happening in your Rotary Club, and I'm glad you're part of it. As a service organization, the projects we're planning have a real-time impact on people's lives. So welcome back to Rotary. Thank you for being here, and thank you for making a difference in our community. Well, hello, and welcome to the September 1st meeting of the Rotary Club of Columbus. Is it really September? Is it really almost football season? Yes. It's great to see all of you here today, and a special welcome to those of you watching online. Today I'd like to recognize Rotarian Jason Smith, and I don't think I saw Jason, but Jason and his team at the Salvation Army are making a difference in our community through their rental assistance program, and so they are providing financial assistance to those who are struggling to pay their rent and who are in danger of being evicted. So thank you, Jason, for what you do. And now would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'd like to ask Ian Bond to bring us our invocation in accordance with his faith tradition.
The Lord be with you. Let's pray. Grant us, O Lord, to trust in you with all our hearts, for as you always resist the proud who confide in their own strength, so you never forsake those who make their boast of your mercy. As Rotarians, liberate us from bondage to self and empower us for service above self. For this food, those who have prepared it, and for this Rotary Fellowship, we thank you. In your name, amen. Please remember the cans.
And at this time, Cedric Hill II is going to bring us today's news.
Good afternoon. Here's a look at a few headlines for us today. Residents of Louisiana continue surveying damage after Hurricane Ida made landfall over the weekend. Hurricane left millions without power across Louisiana and Mississippi, including all of New Orleans at one point. It continues to make its way north and towards the East Coast. As members of Rotary and a service organization, let's keep those impacted in our thoughts and prayers and potentially consider how we can get involved with aiding in relief. This past Saturday, the Community Warriors and Feeding the Valley partnered to feed the Phoenix City community at the Central Activity Center on 14th Street. Fruits, vegetables, toiletry items, and more were given out at the event, and more than 750 cars came out to receive food. COVID cases continue to rise, and according to the CDC, the Delta variant accounts for over 90% of the current cases in Georgia. A spokesperson from our very own West Central Health District suggests that in addition to continuing to practice prevention measures, residents get exercise and fresh air for stress relief and vitamin D. The Dow Jones was down 29 points at noon today, and your weather forecast is mostly sunny with a chance of rain later today, and a high of 87 and a low of 70. And to close today, every city kind of has its little quirks. And one of the funny quirks about Columbus is that we can't decide whether we're uptown or downtown. And so I want y'all to tell me what you think. If you think we're downtown right now, raise your hand. Okay. If you think we're uptown right now, raise your hand. You see what I'm saying? We're all over the place. All right. Enjoy the meeting.
I can't decide. And now it's my pleasure to call on Haley Tillery to introduce today's visiting Rotarians and guests.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad to have a few visitors with us today. Ish Espada brought Ronica Smith, so thank you for being here. Chris Carlson brought Thad Haygood. We're so glad to have you joining us today. And our guest, which I will be introducing, our guest speaker very shortly, she brought Miss Natalie Alexanderson. So thank you so much for being here today. Let's give all of our guests a warm Rotary welcome.
Thank you, Haley. And one of our favorite traditions each week is to welcome a military guest. And so at this time, I would like to call on Tom Waynick to please introduce the Colonel Ralph Puckett Soldier of the Week.
It's my honor today to introduce you to Staff Sergeant Cal B. Davis. Staff Sergeant Davis is an 11 Bravo Infantry. He is currently the S3 Tasking NCO out on Sand Hill for the 3rd Battalion, 54th Infantry Regiment. He told me a few minutes ago that he recently came off the trail, and now he's trying to figure out what to do with all the free time he has. So, he likes fishing and hunting and has had a great career, ranging some of the jobs: fire team leader, striker vehicle commander, rifle squad leader, and then drill sergeant. He was deployed from 2012, 2013 to Afghanistan, and so particularly this week, I want to say thank you for the part you played in 20 years of helping keep people free there. Thank you. Some of the military courses and schools include airborne, air assault, and sling load inspector. He has the Army Commendation Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters, the Army Achievement Medal with 5 oak leaf clusters. He is from the town of Sweet, Idaho, and he enlisted in the Army on 7 June 2011 and did his 1-station unit training here at Fort Benning. Staff Sergeant Davis, today you are our Ralph Puckett Jr. Soldier of the Week, and so we would like to give you this certificate. Also, we want to give you Colonel Puckett's book, Words for Warriors, and this is for you to keep. And then we want to give you our Rotary coin. Whoops. That's probably bad luck on my part. But also, there's a Passport of the Arts here, 2 tickets to River Center, to the Columbus Symphony Orchestra, the National Infantry Museum, Columbus State University Theater Department, and also the Springer. So in some of that free time you now have, you can come downtown or uptown and take advantage of some of these. So thank you. Again, thank you very much for your service, your sacrifice, and your time downrange. Welcome today.
Thank you.
Staff Sergeant Davis, we extend our gratitude to you and all of the men and women who serve alongside you at Fort Benning, and we want you to know how much we appreciate all that you do for our country and our community, and we hope you'll come back and visit again soon. Thank you. Just have one announcement today before we get into our program. It's almost time to distribute the money we collect each week in the Feed the Hungry cans. And so if you know of an organization worthy of a disbursement from our Feed the Hungry Fund, please grab a form in the back or let us know. We'll email you a form and you can get that to the organization. The deadline for the applications are next Wednesday, September the 8th. So joining me today at the head table is Ian Bond, who brought us today's invocation, and now I'm excited to ask Haley Dillery to please introduce today's speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is crazy, as President Lurie mentioned, it's September already. And I'm glad that we're kicking off September with a program that I feel is really going to be something different and something to really take back and discover if this is something you want to explore. A couple months ago, I discovered on the Trade Center calendar that there was a unique theme that was taking place here this week. And it all involved leadership and self-awareness and how people can grow as a stronger leader. Here at Rotary, we know we always put service above self, and that's us being leaders in our community. So with looking at this theme and seeing how all of it came together, the Trade Center introduced what's called Grow Week. So it kicked off with the forum that took place yesterday. Here we are at Rotary being leaders, learning from a great program speaker. We also have BP Leadership Breakfast taking place tomorrow morning and an amazing workshop that you're going to learn more about today. So it's a pleasure to be able to introduce our speaker, Ms. Alicia McGlamory, who is the founder and CEO of Denny Road. And when I was talking to her as a client, I discovered a lot about how this is a form of leadership that can really help an individual grow more than I've ever seen in the past. She truly has a passion in what she teaches, and she wants to help brands, businesses, individuals, and teams grow to be the fulfillment on how they can impact the community in a greater way. She's had 23 years of experience and background as a global marketing executive, where she helps relate challenges that businesses and teams have on a daily basis and how to overcome those, not just for a small period of time, but how to make that a long-term impact for the business. She's an accredited Enneagram practitioner and coach, and if you never heard what an Enneagram is, you're going to learn about that today. Let me see a show of hands. Who knows their Enneagram number? All right, great. If you don't, you're going to learn more about that. I'm a 2, by the way. Alicia is also married to her husband, Gary. She is a mom of 3, and it's crazy. My mom was an educator, and I saw her boys grow up as my mom, a teacher, and seeing these ages is making me my age right now. Garrett is 23, Alex is 21, and Weldon is 18, so she's definitely a boy mom. And she was born at Martin Army right here. She's lived here her entire life and now makes it a daily goal in her life to impact others on how to be self-aware and be a stronger leader. So please give a warm Rotary welcome to our program speaker today, Miss Alicia McGlamory.
Thank you, Haley. And I do get a little warm-hearted every time I'm around Haley because she helped her mom in my boys' classrooms when they were in kindergarten, and now they're men. So, yet we haven't aged a day. Yes. Okay. So the mask and the distance make any speaker not feel really welcomed in any room, but you guys have already made me feel welcome, but we're going to do a little warm and fuzzy here so that I feel connected with you. So, show of hands again. If you've heard of the Enneagram, raise your hand. You've heard of it, okay? All right. Now, if you know what Enneagram type you are, okay? So a little less. And if you hear the word Enneagram and your response is Enneo what? Who's that? Okay. All right. So I can speak to all of you today. I'm going to give you a little background of what has me here even talking to you about the Enneagram today. So why me? Why did I find the Enneagram? What was my journey with the Enneagram? And then tell you a little bit about it. And I think they do have some slides, just a couple of slides for us to go through, so we'll start on that first one. But I started my big girl career at TSYS many years ago and worked in that industry and found out very quickly that I had a love for communication and bringing teams together. One of my favorite things to do was to sit down with a programmer team, and they had their own language and way of thinking, and I would spend hours with them in front of a whiteboard and say, teach me how to teach this to our clients. And then I love to take that back to the business teams and communicate with them and come up with training programs. And I loved seeing people with different personality types come together. And that really has stayed with me throughout my career. I was the VP of Marketing at Masterbuilt. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Masterbuilt, a Columbus-based company. So I was in the smoker and grill and outdoor cooking world for quite some time. And that was a fun adventure. Got to travel the world and promote that brand, and then back home had teams that grew to, over 50 people that I was responsible for. And when you have multiple teams that report up through you, and some of you experience that, you get to know that the individuals on the teams can have quite an impact on the company overall. So when I decided to go out on my own after almost a decade with Masterbuilt, and I'd love to tell you there's a huge compelling reason that there was a better job offer or more money somewhere, but the truth is the Lord asked me to step down, and it wasn't really clear to what. So that was an uncomfortable place for me. And so I walked away from that and started my own adventure, and that is Denny Road. Now, what's Denny Road stand for? Anybody familiar with Catala? Okay, well, there's a road in Catala called Denny Road, and that's where I grew up. And the reason I named my business Denny Road is it's a tribute to my grandfather, my grandmother, the family farm that I grew up on, and where I learned all the work ethic and values that I carry with me today. So it's sentimental to me and just a cool name, right? So when I started my consultancy, I knew it was all going to be all about how can we grow brands, grow teams, grow people. So our specialty, and I do want to let Natalie raise her hand if you want to visit anybody on our team. This is Natalie Alexanderson. She's our creative director. So we know a lot about building brands. We know about rebuilding brands and marketing and branding itself. So that's a specialty of ours. But as for me, when I was consulting and working with companies, I realized that we could give you the best brand in the world, but what was coming to the table a lot of times in my consulting work was that they had team issues, specifically team member issues. And I had heard about the Enneagram and got curious. Now, I had heard about the Enneagram, but let's be honest, we've all experienced some sort of personality test, right? Myers-Briggs, DISC, Strength Finders, the Working Genius, they're all great programs. Has anyone taken one of those? Okay, that's probably the entire room almost, all right? So I have to admit, in middle age, you hear about this new trendy program and you're like, seriously, I think I've figured it out right now. I think I've figured out who I am, what I like, what I don't like. So I really didn't see the need for another personality test, and I could not have been more wrong. Really kind of on a dare and out of curiosity, I took an Enneagram assessment and read a book about it. And when I got my report back in, I had the conversation of my life with my husband, and that's what convinced me. And my husband is opposites attract, so the idea of standing here would terrify him. He's a quiet guy, a steady guy, and I have probably 12,000 more words than him in a day. So for him to get a 42-page report that talked about motivations and fears and what was driving his behaviors, he was able to point to sections in that report and say, that's how I feel. That's what I've been trying to tell you for 20 years. I wish I had known how to describe that my entire life. And it was amazing. So I knew if it could do that in my marriage, and it could do that in my friend relationships as we started to take it, I started to think, how could this impact the teams that I work with? So it's a pretty ancient tool. It's an old tool that has gotten popular again. It is a typing tool. There are 9 types, and if we could, let's see if I can do this correctly.
Sometimes it takes a minute.
He said something about waving, so there we go. And that's Natalie on our team that I mentioned. We'll wave again. There we go. So when I'm working with teams, real quickly, there are 4 E's that I'm looking for with employees. For those of you that are business owners, these E's are super important. They're the common themes that I was finding as I was surveying teams that I worked with. You know, when you're talking to an individual, whether you're interviewing them and considering them, but also once they're on the team and you're doing some professional development, you're going to look for these 4 things. One is ego. You know, are they bringing ego into the conversation? And ego can be a barrier to getting the work done. Ego puts self above others, above the collective interest of the team. Ego is someone that thinks, what would this place do without me? I have the answer to that question. They would move right on. So that's the first E. The second E I look for is there envy? If you've led teams, you can know that if you have someone on your team that they have a scarcity mentality, scarcity versus abundance, meaning they think there's only a limited amount of adoration, affection, attention, achievements, accolades, so that if someone else on the team gets it, it robs from them. That's envy. And you would want your team members to operate with more of an abundance mentality, which is there's enough business to go around, there's enough attention to go around, and celebrate others. Also, engagement. Is this employee engaged in the work, or are they filling a seat? What's interesting is when you think about engagement, in social media, you know, if any of you work in a field that you have to work with social media, you know, the algorithms are constantly changing. And what used to matter back in the day was just a like button. You know, I saw a photo, I saw a post, I thumbs up, I liked it, and that is what mattered. I want to get the most likes. Well, if you're in the marketing industry now, then you know that doesn't matter as much anymore. What matters is engagement. What matters is, did someone have a conversation with you in the comments? Did they watch the entire video? So we're looking for engagement scores. The same thing works with people. Do you want people that simply click a like button? I like my job, I clock in, I clock out. Or do you want people that really get engaged in the mission and vision of the organization? And the last E is empathy. Teams that do not practice empathy are struggling, dysfunctional teams, period. And so when I got to that E, I thought I need a tool to help me with empathy in organizations. And I looked at all the other tools out there, and I found that there was a gap when it came to empathy. You can take a personality test and find out if you're introverted or extroverted or what your strengths are. And for a lot of those tools have been useful to determine what seat we put someone in. We hear a lot of that now in business where we say, do you have them in the right seat? You might need to shift the seat. Yes, I'm concerned about what seat the team member is in, but I'm more concerned about what they do in that seat. Once they get in the right seat, how are we challenging them, and how are they expressing empathy toward others on the team, and how are other team members expressing empathy toward them? So that's where the Enneagram comes in, and you can take an assessment, be sent a link, and guys, you could go on your phone right now and you could take a free assessment. So why do you need to go through an accredited professional? And I will say this, the Enneagram is a very powerful tool. Once you start looking into it, as I mentioned, there are 42 pages in a pro-level Enneagram report. This is not something you want to pick up if you're not familiar with it and navigate it yourself. You want someone who is accredited and trained in the Enneagram to guide those discussions. So the Enneagram is useful for growth and development, for relationship building, conflict resolution, and empathy, and it can improve your team dynamics. We use the Enneagram in team building workshops. It helps people to know one another more. It is not aimed at boxing people in. I will say that was one of my reasons for resisting the Enneagram, is I didn't want to feel that Alicia McGlamory was like everyone else. I feel like God created me uniquely and that I have unique interests and unique behaviors, and yet this assessment has a way of really nailing that. So it addresses the individual team members as complex and layered people. So you may take assessments out there that sort of box you into one of 2 or 3 things and that's it. This is super complex. Now, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, you may have heard that there are 9 types, but I'm here to tell you there are actually 27 types. There are 3 subtypes of every Enneagram type. And so that makes it 27 total. And the subtypes within a type can behave completely different. So you can already see there's a language around this that's super complex. Lori shared that she's an Enneagram 3, which is the competitive achiever or the performer. Anyone surprised? No? That's right. And that means that if you want to get things done, you call on someone like Lori. She introduced me to her daughter, who is also a 3, and I said, well, I would imagine your subtypes might be different. And she said that you guys aren't the same in a lot of ways, and I said that's where your subtype could be informing you. Examples there, your subtype can be that you're a self-preservation, or one-on-one, or social. Haley and I are both 2s. I'm a 1-to-1 2. She's a social 2. So we, have a lot of differences as well. And we'll go into the benefits of the Enneagram. For the individual, they get an awareness of their motivation. So, a lot of assessments will tell us how we are and how we behave. But if you could envision, it's like an iceberg. That's the tip of the iceberg. And underneath the water is, what's driving that behavior? What are the deep motivations and fears that are causing the behaviors? And if we don't address that with our teams, then any personality changes that we see will only be temporary. It's about getting to the motivations and fears that drive the behaviors. And then there are benefits of the Enneagram to the team as well. It reduces judgment and criticism of others. I can tell you I have so many examples of teams that I've coached, individuals that I've coached, that it literally changes their relationships in the workplace. They're able to have that aha moment of, I didn't realize my teammate saw the world in that way. We did a workshop with a team downtown/uptown too long ago, and during the event, as we explained the different types and really dove into how that type sees the world, there's one particular type, a type 6, that is called the loyal skeptic, and they do have a fear-based behavior. Have you ever met anyone that's a worst-case scenario person? They're always going to well, what about this? But what if this happens? Always thinking worst-case scenario. And so the other team members would tease her and make fun of her, that she's a doomsday prepper. She's always thinking through worst-case scenario. At the end of that workshop, when we did a round robin and said, what has today done for you? Her teammates were able to say, I have so much compassion for her because now I see this is not something she's put on. She genuinely thinks the world is a very fearful place, a scary place. And for her to pay attention, achieve her goals, she has to make sure she's safe first. And it made them have so much more compassion for her. So we see the compassion and empathy increase and the understanding. It also enables teams to move beyond patterns of blaming conflict on their personality differences. If you've led a team, you get to that impasse where they're like, listen, we're just different and we don't see this the same way. So the Enneagram is not about teaching them to see the world in the same way. It's about teaching them to understand the way the other sees the world and respect that and have empathy for it. For the organization itself, there's a lot listed here, but basically, you guys are smart. You lead with service and compassion as an organization, so you understand that if we address the individual team members, it has an effect on the team and the organization as a whole. I heard something earlier, it said there is no I in team, but there sure is a me, an ME. And so if we're not addressing those soft skills, all the me's on the team, it can have an impact on our whole organization. Now, I am not going through all of the Enneagram types today because there's simply not time. And I wish I could conduct a whole workshop for you guys. but I have a gift for you. So tomorrow, and I know it's short notice, which is why you're getting an amazing discount, but tomorrow we are having the Road to Growth workshop here at the Trade Center from 9 to 12. We will take that time and pull the Enneagram apart, study all the types. It's going to be a lot of fun, really interesting, and for you guys, you have your own discount code. If you're interested, or you have someone on your team or in your family, or maybe you want your spouse to have the conversation that my husband and I had, then you are welcome to buy a ticket with the code Rotary. So at checkout, when you put the ticket in your cart, use code Rotary, discount code, it will give you 50% off the ticket. So it's an amazing deal. So we'll keep that screen up there. And I did want to allow time for questions if you have them.
Any questions?
And I also have sample reports with me today, so if you're curious to know what these reports look like, I brought them and you're welcome to check them out.
Maybe, Alicia, since we have just a minute, you could, if you have those there, you could go through the 9 different types and just tell us quickly what they are.
Yeah, and let's see if this resonates with anyone in the room. So we're talking about motivations. Remember, I said this is not about how you behave. It's not about whether you're introverted or extroverted. This really is about your deep motivation. And you also may hear these and go, well, I think I'm motivated by several of those things. I mean, your core highest motivation. So there's one that has a motivation to always do the right thing. Very clear, right, wrong, black and white, don't operate in the gray. I will always do the right thing. That's a type 1. The type 2 has a motivational need to be loved and liked. And so everything they do in service of others is looking for like and love in their life. The type 3 has a motivational need to outshine the rest, to perform and achieve and be the best. The type 4 has a motivational need to be unique and individual in the world. They don't want to be a copy. The type 5 has a deep motivational need to understand. They're actually called the quiet specialist or the investigator. So they are bookworms and always seeking to learn and grow their knowledge. The type 6 has a motivational need to be safe. I explained that just a moment ago, that employee who has a lot of fear issues, and it's because she has a motivational need to feel safe. The type 7 is so fun. They are the enthusiastic. They want to experience it all. More joy, more everything. And again, we'll get into this in the workshop if you're curious. There is a 7 deadly sin associated with each type. And as you can imagine, 7, it's gluttony. Because it's more and everything. I have a 7 son who is my middle son, and he's really fun to have in the room. 8 is the active controller, and they have a motivational need to be in control and not be controlled by others. And 9 is the peacekeeper, and they have a motivational need to have balance, peace, and harmony in the world. I'm married to a peacekeeper, and the world needs those. I like to tell people when I send them an assessment link that just because they're numbered 1 to 9, no one type is greater or more right or wrong. They're all just different. But we do call the 9s the sweethearts of the Enneagram. They're right at the top because they are the peacekeepers. And hey, if we didn't have 6s, the fear base, we'd all be dead within 3 days. They've proven that. As you can imagine, it's a lot, which is why we're having a half-day workshop. So any other questions? Yes.
Talk a little bit about how you integrate individual assessments into the team dynamic.
That is a great question. He asked, how do we integrate individual assessments with team dynamics? So I talked about that there's an advantage to working with an accredited practitioner, and the global organization that I'm a part of, we actually do offer team reports as well. It is an amazing service. So what you would do if you're interested in team dynamics is you would get individual reports on each of your members, and then we can run a collective team report. And the team report is able to take all of those individuals and say, okay, as a team, we see that you're really strong here, you might have some gaps here, kind of let you know who needs to fill seats and where you might need to strengthen some of your abilities. The team I was referring to that we did the workshop with a while back was an insurance company here locally. And we found out that their team has a lot of ones on the team. So ones are that strict perfectionist, rules-based, follow processes. That's amazing to have those people on an insurance team. And then the agency is led by a 6. Assessing risk is her natural language, so she is in the right industry. But what they had 0 of, and not only do I provide you a team report, I'm able to give a presentation for your team with those slides, they had 0 creativity on their team. They did not have one single member of the team that touched on creativity. So we were able to design this custom team builder for them where we got them to be creative. And it brought inside of them. It was a pretty neat experiment. So great question. Does that answer it? Okay. Any other questions?
I had a question. If somebody were going to engage an Enneagram coach, let me say that.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was going to engage an Enneagram coach, what would the process look like and how long would it take?
That's a great question. So the first step is to get an assessment. And even if you've taken an assessment online or on social media, I encourage people, if I'm going to coach you, to get an assessment through me. And I'll go ahead and let you know that costs $60 for a standard assessment and $110 for a pro assessment. And the standard comes with a 23-page report. The pro comes with a 42-page report. I recommend the pro if you're dealing with work teams because it has feedback guides for how you communicate with one another. It has information on team dynamics, your leadership style. It is truly a more professional report. If you're just doing it socially, you would be fine with the standard. You get the assessment first. I send you the report to review. I get a coaching companion. So that's the advantage of going through a coach is I get a separate report that goes really deep based on your answers, and it helps me ask the right questions in our coaching sessions. And then we'll spend your first coaching session, and some people are one and done and in and out if they have a clear understanding. We go through the report together, show you how to use it as a tool, and you'll see mine are coil bound because I consider mine to be like the book of me. When I'm needing to explain how I'm feeling about something, I can look at that and say, oh, I might have, a blind spot toward this behavior or that. So, does that answer? Yes.
I've taken a number of assessments in my life, some of which were positive. But what I found the most difficult thing is to maintain this behavior. It's real exciting the first week, 2 after you do it, and all of a sudden you find yourself, well, they're doing the wrong thing, or they're not, you don't try this at all. So do the coaches help with that, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I happen to know the coach. She's pretty intelligent and can tap into that. I'm kidding. Yes, we spend a lot of time on that. And it's interesting, you'll start to notice that other people, just in the way you talk to them, they give you clues as to their own type. And there are certain types that would absolutely feel that way, and we would have the tools to address that. What's awesome is this particular report not only tells you these are your behaviors, it not only tells you these are the fears driving those behaviors, it not only tells you what motivates you, but throughout the report it has development exercises so that you always have, what can I do about this? How can I exercise health in this area versus non-health? So you have a list of what to do continually throughout the rest of your life. So you're not left lacking of how do I keep this up? The goal is that this is not a new behavior. It's not just hitting at the level of a behavior. This hits to the core of who you are as a person. So the work we do in the coaching relationship here is really about the way you see the world, and it's meant to be more permanent, not a temporary fix. So I hear you on that. Question? Thank you guys so much. I don't take it lightly that you invited me, and I appreciate the time. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
We'll be around. Alicia, thank you. Thank you so much. I love the Enneagram. I enjoy that, and I about myself, particularly the motivation. And so I had to think about it after I was typed a 3. I had to think about that. And it was fun to learn more of your perspective of that as well. And so to show our appreciation, we always place a children's book inscribed with the speaker's name in our local public library. So Alan, our number 7 out there, will make sure that is done and that there is a party around that. So thank you again. I would like to recognize Haysha Haddad. Haysha, I saw you over here. How's your week going? Oh, good. I love thumbs up. That's great. I also remember that there will be a replay of today's program on Facebook, and also you'll get a link via email that you can watch on YouTube. And if you are watching online but you would like to attend in person next week, just let us know maybe by Friday so that we can make sure we have enough chairs. And I'd like to re-welcome all of our visiting Rotarians and guests, and then a special welcome to Staff Sergeant Davis. You honor us with your presence, and we're glad you were here. I hope you'll be here next week when our program will be Georgia Supreme Court Justice Carla Wong McMillan. Justice McMillan is coming from Atlanta to bring us our program. I'm really excited about that. And so until we meet next week, let's go make a difference.